It's late. Not quite so late that it's early. At least in the Mountain Time Zone. But it's late. Denver football after dark as this Saturday night becomes a Sunday morning. The Broncos' first off day of 2025 training camp. They are probably sound asleep, I would imagine, or maybe not, because it is a off day for them. Off day from practice. Their first rest day. So we've had 2 acclimation days and we've had 2 practice days. Pads have yet to go on, but it's the first chance to take a little bit of stock here and say, okay, what have we learned? What are the first bits and pieces that we've learned here? The first breadcrumbs, as it were. Howdy, Broncos country. That's what I usually say when I have my post-practice wraps, of course. But I'll use it here again, here in the wee small hours of the morning, talking to you about all things Denver Broncos. Not talking to you, talking with you, because we take plenty of comments here over the course of this little show that's only a few days old. First, want to thank all of you for joining me, whether you're live or joining me at another time of the day, whether it's viewing it in the overnight hours or you're joining me in the morning at another time. I hope you enjoy the vibe. There's a lot of shows with admittedly a different energy than this one, and that's okay. As I often say, this is about zigging when everybody else is zagging. It's a little bit of an anti-algorithm vibe here. But what are we learning so far? Not what have we learned, but what are we learning? We're in the process of learning. We're getting bits and pieces. What are we learning about these Denver Broncos? What are we learning about Bo Nix? What are we learning about this offense? We're learning just how much it's starting to resemble the offenses that Sean Payton had in New Orleans. This is now starting to take on the form of what he had for so long. Now he's starting to accumulate the pieces. Now he has a quarterback in year 2 who has a menu that is starting to expand. When I refer to the pieces, I'm talking about a tight end like Evan Engram who can be moved around. A running back like RJ Harvey, who can be a pass catching target, who has some dynamic speed to get to the edge, but also has the toughness to go between the tackles and the fearlessness to do so as well. And the body type and the thickness to burrow. Cecil Lammey and I were talking about this, that with his 207, 208 pounds on a 5'8" frame, and of course how thickly he's built with the muscles. I mean, you see the thighs, you see the quads. I mean, he is very strong. He does not miss a leg day, does RJ Harvey. And he is built to get tough yards as well as the open field speed yards. It's one of the things that's so exciting about him. And then you have a veteran like J.K. Dobbins, who fills the Latavius Murray in 2020 part of the equation. I mean, maybe we're not talking about maybe a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara thing. I mean, maybe that's the ideal thing of 2017 with the Saints, but it can be a Latavius Murray, Alvin Kamara thing of 2020. You can go through any number of Saints combinations for running back timeshare, and that can work as well. There's plenty of examples you can cite. And it doesn't have to be a straight up parallel with any kind of Saints running back combination. This can be its own monster, but either way, a timeshare in the vein of what Sean Payton often had in New Orleans. But it can be its own thing, standing apart in the vein, in the tradition, but standing apart. But no matter what, the pieces are in place now. Young receivers who are growing. Troy Franklin looks better. Marvin Mims Jr., as Cecil and I talked about over on Orange and Blue today, sprouting branches on the route tree, doing what seems like more and more every single day. You see him getting downfield. You see him, short stuff. You see, tunnel screens. You see him, working on posts. You see a lot of things happening after the catch. Ever since that Chiefs game last November, I like to talk about the intentionality of getting him the football out of the backfield, handing it to him instead of waiting for his turn in the progressions and seeing if it was open, saying, okay, we're just going to hand you the ball. It's your turn. It's your opportunity here on this play. Go do something with it. The very intentionality of that by saying it is your call, your turn, your time on this play. That opened things up for him. It also opened, I think, for Sean Payton and Joe Lombardi and Davis Webb and Pete Carmichael and everybody involved with this offense. It, I think, opened up their creativity in terms of designing elements for him. So you have all these pieces in place here for something that could be exceptionally exciting. And then the cherry on the sundae, and the most important part, yes, of course, is Bo Nix, working behind an offensive line that was number one last year, according to ESPN Analytics, in run block win rate and pass block win rate. And what we're learning about him is how much faster he's operating. The processor, of course, is always there. It was there at Oregon. And it was one of the things that attracted the Broncos to him. They could see that. They saw how quickly he could learn. Of course, it goes back to throwing a lot at him, finding out how much he could ingest in one night. So there's the processor on the field, and there's also how much his brain could handle in terms of ingesting things schematically in one night, finding out the limit of what he could learn quickly. So it's learning what's up here and how much he could take in. There's also the coachability factor and how much he could take in and apply to his game. That's something that you learn, for example, in Senior Bowl week, watching him in practice, that you teach him something on Tuesday, and is he applying it to his game by Thursday? Is he ingesting the information and then applying it and putting out there into practice by Thursday? Is it becoming part of his game? Or are you teaching him that, and is it just kind of sailing away and not being applied? Well, Bo applies it. So all these things come together and create a quarterback who is somebody who has tools to succeed at this level. And now it's coming together. Now you have a quarterback who, in year two, after he's gotten past the things that he talked about several weeks ago, he's gotten past the footwork, the basic footwork things that he had to overcome, the, habits that he had to unlearn in terms of his drops. He's gotten past the issues of spitting out the play, where he said he had to think about everything that went into regurgitating the play call in the huddle, which meant he's thinking about that, and he's not thinking about looking over a defense and trying to dissect it pre-snap. So what that means, of course, is, you're filling your brain with that, with trying to get the play call out, and you're not filling your brain with your pre-snap read and making a potential pre-snap change and getting everyone in the right. You're not getting everyone in the right set, in the right formation. You're not thinking about your audible because you're worried about other things. Well, now he's past that. But as Bo Nix said, some of the things he was worried about as a rookie were actually the things that might seem pretty simple. Here's Bo Nix talking on Saturday about some of the things that consumed his mind as a rookie may have been the most trite and simple of things.
Just been there, done that. I don't have to worry about what certain looks are or what, as crazy as it sounds, where we're going for the locker room or where we're going for the stretch. I mean, I know it. I can, get there and do it, knock it out. Now I can focus on the next level things and the details and not really the overall picture. And just, a lot of times as a rookie, you just don't want to look like an idiot. Now you can go out there and, look a lot better than an idiot.
I mean, you're worried about where the locker room is? I mean, but there's so much being thrown at you, right? When you're a rookie, John Elway famously said that when you're a rookie quarterback, you're drinking from the fire hose. That's how much is being tossed at you at that moment. So much being lobbed in your direction. It's a great analogy, really. You're not sipping. There's so much being thrown at you. You can't even drink it. It just knocks you for a loop. And of course, Elway's rookie season, that first month, those of you who are Broncos fans back then and recall it, that first month of play was ragged. The Broncos won the first two starts of John Elway's career, both on the road at Pittsburgh, at Baltimore. But John Elway was not a reason why they won those starts. It was Steve DeBerg coming in off the bench in relief and ensuring that the Broncos won those games. It wasn't until December of that season that Elway began to be a reason why the Broncos won games. You think of the comeback win against Baltimore in the penultimate week of the regular season, when Elway really started to become a big reason why the Broncos could win. And then from there, all good things flowed. Bo's first month last year, especially those first two games, it very much resembled drinking from the fire hose. But then incrementally it got better. And now you watch him out there in practice and you watch how quickly he's processing. You watch how quickly the ball is getting out, how quickly he's reading what's being thrown at him. And the thing that strikes me is he's going up against a defense that has top level pass rushers. Okay, this is a D that returns all the juice from a pass rush that led the league in sacks, and actually is better because you're bringing in Dre Greenlaw and you're bringing back Alex Singleton. So personnel wise, this is a better pass rush that you're seeing. And you see them attacking. I mean, I'm seeing Nick Bonito crash off the edge. I'm seeing Jonathan Cooper generate pressure. I'm watching JFM, John Franklin Myers, and Zach Allen. They're bursting into the backfield. I'm seeing it. And it's not a knock on the protection. It's just that these guys are good and they're going to win some matchups because of the quality of players they are. That's just how this works. They're talented players, and even a terrific offensive line is going to lose some battles against terrific players on the other side of the ball. That happens. So you're seeing Nick Bonito with backside pressure and Bo Nix rolling to his right and having to make a quick decision as he's rolling. And you're seeing Jonathan Cooper work past a tight end in protection on the edge and quickly attack. And Bo, still, he's reading where the pressure is coming from and he's seeing a vacated area and he's attacking that. Like if he sees For example, you'll see a moment where he sees a blitz coming. He'll see an A gap blitz. Coming from one of the inside backer spots. Okay. Vacated area. Boom. He sees it, processes it, gets the ball there. There was one play. I mean, I may have probably maybe I make too much of a play sometimes, but you see, okay, there's a rush coming, and you set up a matchup where you've got Evan Engram working as Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper's a good player, but covering Evan Engram, that's a good matchup. That's a matchup that Evan Engram should win. So it comes fast. The way that the pass rush is coming at him, it's coming from one direction. It sets up a matchup to the right where Engram gets a jump. He's got a step on Coop, and Bo quickly gets the ball out, leads Engram on a quick slant, and he's off to the races. Some of that is chemistry and cohesion between Bo Nix and his tight end. Some of that is Bo learning how to read a defense and process it quickly. Some of that is Bo and what he sees pre-snap. Those last two things come from the maturation and the ability to think more about what he's seeing in front of him pre-snap defensively, because he's not worried about these other things, which goes back to what he mentioned several weeks ago when I asked him about a difference between early last season and where he stands in this offseason and heading in this season, how he's not thinking about certain things anymore. So to follow up on that, I asked Troutman. I had a chance to chat with Trout one-on-one on Saturday, and we'll be running excerpts from this interview over the next few days because there's a lot to unpack. And I asked him about a few other things, and I asked him about Evan Engram. I asked him about Kale Lohner, the really fascinating rookie tight end, 7th round pick out of Utah, and his progress. And of course, with Adam Troutman, he's really dialed into the state of the team. He's been around Sean Payton for all but one season of his career. So he understands Peyton. He understands his methodologies better than probably anyone in the locker room. So it's always, if you want to kind of get a feel for what's going on, if you want to get an understanding of things, Trout's one of those guys you go to, and he's very intelligent. So I asked Trout about what he sees differently for Bo now compared to that first month last year when the drinking from the fire hose thing that John Elway talks about was kind of very real. And I thought the answer was pretty illuminating. Here's Adam Troutman talking about that.
There's no type of haze in his eyes where he feels like maybe, what was the kill? Let me figure that, and he's smart as hell anyways. But this year it's like, you get to a point when I played with Drew, it was like his second language. And obviously I'm not saying Bo's Drew is like, that's unfair. Yeah. But it is becoming like that. Like he's spitting it out fast, and now we can focus on cadence. Now we can focus on shifts, motions, whatever we want to do. So now you can kind of mess with the defense a little more. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility when your quarterback is so honed in and dialed in on the entire picture of the offense in each play.
You kind of stopped yourself from saying genius there.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's damn smart, and it's not just because he's bright naturally. It's because of the time and effort he puts into this. This is his job. Like, this is his life, and he's in full control of it, and that's why he's been so great.
Yeah. He almost said genius. He didn't. He almost said it. He stopped himself. But I like what he also said about how it wasn't just Bo's natural intelligence, but he worked at it. And there's another part of that we'll probably get into on a future show where he also talks about how Bo's example for how he works and what he does and how much time he puts in really compels other guys to put in that extra bit of time, to work a bit harder and study a bit harder. And Trout said, hey, he got that from Drew Brees when he first came in New Orleans in 2020. And he sees how much Drew's putting in, and he realizes, okay, I've got to do that. And I recall when Peyton Manning was here, and players would see how much Peyton worked, and that was the sign to them. Okay, 18's working this hard, and look what he's accomplished. Like, I've got to meet that standard as well. There was very much an expectation when Peyton Manning was here that you've got to meet that level of diligence. And if you don't, there's not going to be a place for you here. I mean, if you didn't and you didn't know what you were doing and you were in the wrong spot, you ran the wrong route, whatever, well, you've seen the examples, right? I mean, you may remember not being on the same page with Cody Latimer, for example. I think it was the Cleveland game back in 2015, or the playoff game that the Colts were in back in the 2009 season, and Donald Brown misses an assignment, and Peyton's caught on the hot mic, the boom mic from the sideline with an epithet yelling at Donald Brown. And you can hear it because, of course, the Colts crowd is so quiet because they respected the desire for no noise so Peyton could audible and do his thing. But yeah, that's another sign of how much this is Bo Nix's team, but also how Bo's setting a good example and how everyone's following him. Like, they see how much he's studying. I mean, Bo, look at how in the offseason he's spending time with Drew Brees. He's getting more work with Tom House and, working on, a little bit on rest and recovery and, every little thing to get better, every little thing to, get an extra edge, every little thing to study a little bit more, to get that extra 1%, that extra drop here and there, that little bit more. If you don't do that, you're going to fall behind. So that's standard. And I think it's key that it's coming from the locker room. It's coming from Bo. It's not coming from the coach. Like, the coach and the coaches, they can say it, they can implore it into the players all they want. But it's much better when these examples are coming from within the locker room, when it's player centric and player driven rather than coach driven. Yeah, coaches can set the tone and establish a culture, but ultimately you want the players to drive it. The coach can kind of get it going. And I think that's really kind of what Sean Payton and his staff did in 2023, especially with the type of players that they brought in to start getting things going. You think about the free agency class they brought in: Ben Powers, Mike McGlinchey, Zach Allen, but even some of the players below the radar. I mean, Adam Troutman's a guy that is a good example of that. Someone who they trade for him, and he in some ways kind of serves as a translator almost for Sean Payton. He's in the locker room to, if players kind of question it, hey, what's going on? Why is he doing this? Someone who was around Sean Payton for a couple of years in New Orleans and understands the method to his madness and can kind of say, hey, this is what's going on, and, kind of help get some buy-in. Well, that's year one. And now we get to year 3, and it's player driven. It's not so much coach driven. It's players kind of bringing it together. It's, basically it's it's almost like you have the parent kind of guiding the young child almost of a team in 2023. And now you've seen it kind of grow up, and it's, it's leaving the nest and it's kind of making its own decisions a little bit. It's doing its own thing. And, there's still some guidance, and, the coach is going to make the play calls and all that. But in terms of motivation, it's coming from within the locker room. You have the leaders who are the player leaders who are kind of providing that example. It's not the coaches having to do as much prodding. The prodding is coming from within that locker room. It's coming from Bo Nix studying and being diligent and providing that example of doing a little bit extra. Sean Payton talked about the example that Jonathan Cooper said as a guy for whom he said, for Coop, it just means more to him. And that you want guys that it means a little more to them. And now you've got a locker room that's kind of filled with guys like that are setting an example. So it's been exciting to see that transition happen. Maybe this is one of the reasons why when I looked around that locker room last year, sometimes especially as I got in November and December and sort of reflected on the experience covering the team and being in that locker room, 3 times a week. And then after the games, and I thought, this is as good a locker room as I've ever been around as far as like the quality of people, as far as the players went. And I feel this way as well. I mean, just when I was talking to Troutman today before doing the interviews, catching up on off seasons and all that, because there's a lot of good people on this team. A lot of hardworking guys, a lot of diligent guys, because a lot of good guys. So, and it makes me feel good to tell you all that as Bronco fans, because I mean, I think we all want to support a team that's got good people. And I can tell you that this Broncos locker room is filled with a lot of guys who as in my experience, are actually good people, that are worth pulling for. So that's something that warms my heart. And I will also say, from my perspective, asking these guys for a few minutes of their time and, talking to them and interviewing these as players makes my job a little easier as well, that they're generous with their time and their answers, and are so insightful for answering, way too many of my questions here. Denver football after dark here on the wee small hours of a Sunday morning, overnight, Saturday night, wherever you are. Appreciate you riding with me here on a Saturday night into Sunday morning here. Wasn't all good news, of course, unfortunately, for the Broncos on Saturday. That man right there, Drew Sanders, carted off during practice, unfortunately, with a leg injury. We don't know, but I mean, he had the leg injury last year, but he was carted off and has an MRI. The only thing we know for certain about the injury is that it's not an Achilles injury. That is what we learned from Sean Payton after practice. Subsequent examinations coming on Drew Sanders, we'll find out the extent of it. You get nervous here, of course. Inside linebacker, it's a position that it's a little bit depth shy. You have him and you have Justin Sternad. Now, Sternad, he is somebody who started 8 games for you last year, so at least you have one guy back there who has starting experience. But as we know, down the stretch last year, he and Cody Barton, Cody now with the Titans, of course, working together, there was reason why they brought Dre Greenlaw in. They needed a bit more speed and power there inside backer. Now, of course, the other thing, of course, that's a factor is Dre Greenlaw and Alex Singleton. Those are 2 guys that they're coming off injuries. So that's why Drew Sanders and his development was worth watching. And I had been encouraged by how he had played, getting first team reps while Greenlaw and Singleton were working their way back over off-season work, OTAs and minicamp. And it's tough for him, man. It's a tough blow, considering all he'd done to work his way back from that Achilles injury last year. I think the question then becomes, all right, if Drew Sanders is out for a long period of time, what do you do? Do you go get another inside linebacker or do you wait? I am always of the belief that if you have an injury right now, you don't make a move right now. I know this sort of came up in 22 and 23 with Tim Patrick when unfortunately he had those injuries during training camp. Like, oh, Broncos have to bring somebody in and, you know, this, that, and the other. I'm always of the perspective that the first thing you do is take a look at the internal options, because the guys on the market, there probably isn't going to be a stampede for those players right now, that they're still going to be there in a week or two. And in particular with veterans, I mean, I know somebody today on one of my channels brought up Quan Alexander, who of course was here last year. Well, you brought in Quan Alexander 4 weeks into the season and were able to put him on the practice squad, of course. So when you think about that, it tells you guys are available potentially into the season and you can put them on the practice squad. Veterans in particular, with the vested veteran rule, you may not want them on the roster week 1 anyway. And this is only if we're talking about an extended absence for Drew Sanders. The MRI might bring up only a short-term injury, and then this discussion is moot. And knock on any surface that you can find, and hopefully it's good news for Drew Sanders with subsequent evaluation. But if it's bad news for Drew Sanders, I think the first thing you do is look at the internal options. First, Lavelle Bailey, who, of course, did get a little bit of time last year, mostly on special teams, also time on the practice squad. Lavelle Bailey has had a pretty interesting last couple of days. 3 plays on the ball, including 1 takeaway on Friday. He has been active around the ball, aggressive. So he's shown some strides recently. But Karene Reid, he's one of the Broncos' priority undrafted guys based on getting one of the top guaranteed money amounts in this year's undrafted class. Karene, by the way, that is the pronunciation according to the pronunciation guide on the rosters we have been provided. I'm just quoting that. I see it. I want to say Karene, Karene. Karene is how it is listed. So he had 3 consecutive plays at the end of practice, final team period in the red zone on Saturday. The only thing that kept him from completely blowing them up was it's no pads. He kind of held himself back, but he was in position to blow all 3 plays up, reading them properly. It was 3s against 3, so he's down there on the 3rd team. But that's a good early sign for him that you're seeing awareness, you're seeing him in the right place, you're seeing him attacking. So if you're looking for an indication that a rookie is making progress, it's a moment like that. I will admit, yeah, I look for the positives. I look for signs of progress. If I err on the side of anything, I err on the side of progress and seeing positive signs. Like I will err on, hey, nice play for Audric Estime, last play of the practice, nice burst to get a touchdown. Okay. Now Audric's going to have a big day potentially on Monday because the pads go on. That's where if he's going to show something, he's got to show it then. But Karene Reid flashing at the end. Okay. There's a moment that hopefully you see if he carries it over on Monday when the pads go on. And if Drew Sanders at least misses any amount of time, so you figure cart it off, unless it's like Garrett Bowles back in 2017 where he's carted off one Sunday and he's back on the field the next Sunday in Buffalo. or in Orchard Park, New York, I should say, to be perfectly accurate. Unless it's like that, then Drew Sanders at minimum is going to be out for a little bit. And so that would bump everybody at inside linebacker up a little bit. So we'll find out a little bit more about Reid. Lavelle Bailey, hey, remember, he had that strong work in the preseason, had that touchdown against the Cardinals late last year. So we've seen a burst there. Maybe we see a little bit more from him this summer. Certainly a little bit more make or break for him going into year 2, but some positives there to take from the last couple of days for Lavelle Bailey. But the Broncos are going to need that. But again, I always say, look at the internal options first before you start looking outside. Because ideally, you solve any problem with what you've got on hand, at least now, sitting here in late July. Like, again, we're not in September. We're sitting here as I record this in the early morning hours. We're sitting here on July 27th. On July 27th, take advantage of the internal options. Don't feel like you have to mash the panic button and say, okay, let's go get a guy. Let's go get a veteran. Just sit back and wait a little bit. And then maybe if you don't see what you like, then you start picking up the phone and bringing somebody in. Right now, I think you see what you've got in the veterans there. But be prepared, just be prepared to make a move just in case, because you do have 2 guys atop the depth chart who have injury concerns. And that, I think, it's only prudent to do that because Dre Greenlaw, Achilles, Alex Singleton, ACL. That's the dice roll you took. If Drew Sanders has an injury, it's going to keep him out for a significant amount of time. You do have to be prudent. But right now, maybe you just have somebody on speed dial. But for the moment, give the young guys a look and see if they can't help provide the depth that you're looking for here. Denver football after dark here on this Sunday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning. Caleb, finally going to catch one of these live. Yeah, a little bit later. I got a little bit behind tonight, but that's okay. Life happens sometime, that things you have to take care of, and that's what I had. That's what I had to do. Had to do a little bit of work, take care of a couple of things personally, but that's all right. I was not going to let the night pass without getting to this, and haven't decided if I'm going to do an after dark on Sunday or not. If I do, it may not be an after dark that has anything to do with actually football or at least on field stuff. We might be doing an after dark on uniforms, so stay tuned for that. Anyhow, Jacob asking, how is Singleton doing? Just to talk about him a little bit. He looks good. He's moving well, as I expected. I mean, we're sitting here now. We're 10 months after the injury, and it was a clean ACL tear. And what I mean by clean is no other damage. We weren't talking about meniscus. We weren't talking about other ligaments. This was not a Javonte Williams injury where poor Javonte shredded his knee, and that's part of why he wasn't the same, sadly to say, after that injury. Alex's injury was it was ACL. That was it. He's moving well out there. He looks pretty good. So anyway, Caleb, again, one of the big indicators for success of the year not talked about is the team talks about the strength of the locker room and camaraderie of the team. Yeah, it's a good group. It's a group that's on the same page. It's together. It's again, quality locker room that they've got. So, Jules, next step I want to take is both trusting and working in the pocket, breaking so often while having the best pass blocking line per win rates seems a bit wasted. It does, but at the same time, while he's young, I don't mind him taking advantage of his wheels from time to time. He did that early in the season, particularly in October, and I didn't mind that as he was finding his way as a passer. that club in his bag, it's okay to use that now. As he gets older, he'll use that less and less, but I don't mind him taking off and running and escaping the pocket a little bit because it can discombobulate a defense. And I always think of Chris Harris Jr. telling me that a quarterback who can move, it does put stress on a secondary, does put stress on a corner, because you have to think about that, especially put stress on a slot corner working from the inside. It's really one more thing that guy has to think about. So that's just something. That's just something to that's something to consider as well. Eminem, Bill Belichick said the most important trait he looked for in a player was intelligence. Having Troutman call Bo a genius almost perked my ears up. Is that what you see team wide? Yeah, it's a smart team. It's one thing that you want players who can think for themselves. Now there are some people who believe that they want players who just are like, yes, sir, no, sir, almost drones that don't necessarily question. To me, you want players who, when they go out there, kind of can think for themselves, that they can quickly solve problems. You want quick processors, and you want quick reaction, quick process. See, it's not necessarily about like IQ, because sometimes you can be really smart, but you can take a while to process and you can take a while to react. And that means you're not suited for football. You need to be smart, but you need to have a quick reaction, quick processing. So it's, intelligence comes in a lot of different ways. But I do think that this is a team that's filled with a lot of really bright people in general. It's one of the reasons I like this team. I tend to, I'll be honest, I like the smart guys, and there's a lot of smart guys on this team that you chat with them, and a lot of intellectually curious guys. That's another thing that I like as well. That I think you can really, it's a compliment. These are guys that are actually, they love football, but they're interested in the world. Like interested in the world, in traveling, going to different places, and experience. A lot of them interested in experiencing different cultures and that kind of thing. They've, and that's something to admire as well. You have to admit, Coach Payton's disdain for the media is pre-justified. Media asks some pretty insufferable questions more often than not. Oh yeah, okay. This came up, Hojak bringing it up, and then Jules bringing up, what question was it that made Sean Payton a bit furious? He answered a couple of days ago. Okay, it had so it was something. It was a point that was brought up, and what it was it was framed as, it was that something had been reported, and it wasn't reported. It was Sean Payton saying it, yet it was framed in the question as, it was reported that. Well, it wasn't reported. It was Sean Payton had said it. And that's what tripped his trigger. Okay, yeah, not all the questions are great. I mean, all of us in the media have asked lunkhead questions at some point. I've asked dumb questions before. I'm going to ask dumb questions again. I'll say this with Sean Payton. I mean, he does keep you on your toes. When you have somebody who will react, he will kind of, he will react the way he does. And I'll say this, like example, on Wednesday, like I asked him about Jeremy Crawshaw and how he was doing. And he's like, well, it's been one practice, but I came back and said, no, I'm referring to OTAs and minicamp, because I wasn't talking about that day's practice. And I wanted to make it clear. I was talking about the entire breadth of the offseason. And when he understood that, he offered a really good and illuminating answer, which actually said a lot and was significant, because he said he was excited about a punter which perked my ears up because how often do you hear a coach, especially a coach who's been at it for so long, be excited about a punter like that? There are some responses that, you forget about them the moment they're said. They're not significant. When you hear a longtime coach who, if he gives a compliment, it means something. There are some coaches, if they give a compliment, it means nothing. It's bupkis, right? I mean, I think I said it on the radio with Dan Jacobs on Saturday afternoon that if Nathaniel Hackett gave a compliment, well, I mean, he was golly gee whiz, everything is awesome. It meant nothing if he was like being positive about a guy at a press conference. If Sean Payton is at a press conference saying he's excited about a punter, a rookie punter, that actually had some weight. And so that's why I clipped that video and played the comment like it meant something. So once I made it clear to Sean, I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about the breadth of the offseason. He gave a very good and very colorful response. But he also gave a challenge to Jeremy Crawshaw within that because he did note the need for more consistency, which I'm sure also reflected the sentiments conveyed to Crawshaw behind the scenes. And that was one thing I do like is, when you hear something like that, it's clear that sometimes what a coach says is not what is said privately, but that sort of thing, there's an honesty there when you're saying, okay, he's got to do better. He's got to be more consistent. That's the sort of thing that is being conveyed in private. So there's an honesty and a candor there. And then Crawshaw, to his credit, responded to that challenge of you've got to be more consistent, because that day on Wednesday, he wasn't consistent in the drill. He'd had a shank, he'd had another shaky punt. And then he goes out there on Friday and he's very consistent. The one punt that wasn't great was on a high snap and it still went 50 yards. So he responded to the challenge. All good. But yeah, that was a moment today at the press conference. That was absolutely a moment there. It does get interesting sometimes. The Monday conference calls after games are really interesting because sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge his mood. Sometimes he has been at his least effusive after wins, and sometimes he has been at his most loquacious the day after losses. Like his most willing to expound after defeat. And then sometimes after a win, he's like, he's really short. It's kind of hard to gauge. I will say this. I admit I don't like having the first question on a conference call on a Monday because I often have a couple of sets of questions that I could ask on a conference call. And I will say I've actually got questions based on making sure I don't ask something that was answered the day before. And again, there's another thing, like with the stuff that was brought up, it was already answered. And of course, he'd already said it. This is another thing. Pay attention to what's been said before. There's a few times I've actually asked Sean Payton, and I did this like 2 years ago and last year. I'll say, hey, you mentioned something a couple of months ago. And I've gotten a decent answer from asking things like that. And I'll bring up what he said, and he'll refer to that. And that's the thing. If I bring up something like that, he'll remember it. So if he remembers that when you jog his memory and bring up something like that, of course he's going to remember something he said 2 days ago. And so if you do that, like, you've got to come prepared. You've got to come armed, because if not, he'll tear into you. He will tear you up. You can't go into the lion's den without a spear, man. Okay? You can't. Because if you do, that lion is going to eat you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And those poor guys, they got eaten today. You know, the coach had their lunch. Just, it happens. It's happened. All of us have been eaten at some point. We've all been the meal. So anyway, we got people checking in on the late night live. Hey, victory lap. Is that Vic as in Vic Fangio? Anyway, that we hungry. Yeah, did I make you hungry with that little analogy? Yeah, I hope not, because I was talking about like media people being eaten. Like that's a little like Hannibal Lecter-ish, you know. Some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Wondering about Estime. Yeah. Still have hope for him. Again, last play of the Saturday practice, touchdown. And he has done well on some cutback runs so far in training camp. That's been an area where he looks like he's made progress. So hope. So people stress about the smallest things this time of year since there's nothing to talk about. Yeah. Like how many snaps Cortland Sutton's getting. Sorry. Get some sleep. But if I got some sleep, I wouldn't be talking with y'all. You can see the bind I'm in. I read a TikTok at Barron is struggling. Can you test that, or is it just lies? He's a rookie. It's 4 days in, 2 days of acclimation, 2 days of training camp. I'm not going to overreact. Has he had a standout play? Has he done something that's jumped out? Has he had a wow moment? No, he hasn't. Has he stolen the show? No, he hasn't. Has he looked overwhelmed, lost? No, I wouldn't say that either. I'd say he looks like a rookie, and they're throwing a lot at him. They're throwing multiple positions at him, multiple spots, and they're trying to figure out kind of what the best role is for him. I'll also say this. He's competing for an outside spot with Riley Moss. He's competing for inside with Jaleel McLaughlin. Jaleel, he's making some plays. There was one play today where he shoots through Lucas Kroll trying to make a block on little screen pass outside, little flanker screen, and he just roars through Kroll, breaks it up. Jaquan, if Shadé Barron competing for a slot, competing for outside, Jaquan is not giving up that spot easily. He has come with a vengeance to play in this training camp so far. He is fighting, and he is playing his tail off. Riley Moss playing his tail off. I think it is less, I would say it's less that Shadé Barron is struggling. It is more, to me, that Jaquan McMillan and Riley Moss are playing well. They're responding to a challenge of the Broncos bringing in a first rounder who's got a lot of talent. And that first rounder looking like a rookie who is swimming in the deep end. And that's what happens. They're working him in. They're giving him some plays. And so far, he hasn't made a splash moment. It doesn't mean that he's struggling. It means he hasn't made a splash moment. Again, this is why I say, what are we learning? rather than what have we learned, because we are learning and we are getting bits and pieces, and we are starting down the road of this process. We are not at an end point, nor are we anywhere close to that. We're not at conclusions. So anyway, Boss Moss back. Riley looking good. He is. I knew Riley, but I knew that from Riley because I've interviewed him a bunch of times. Like, that is the demeanor that he has. That is one competitive son of a gun. Good to hear Jaleel showing out. Fans turn on him quick. Yeah. There's another guy who works his tail off. There's another guy who will not give up a spot without a fight. There's another guy who, kind of like Bo Nix, puts that extra time in the study. We all know with Jaleel, he's that guy who's in the building at 5:15. He's out late. Like, he's out of the building late. I say he's out late. No, he's out of the building late. Like, he's there all the time. So Jaleel's one of the, he's the type of guy that you want on your team. And watching him, and he had a touchdown catch from Bo Nix today in red zone period. Like, the thing that Jaleel does, there are things that Jaleel does really well, and why I think he's still going to end up on this 53 and still kind of, again, he's in his own box and get a few snaps a game and get a few plays a game and get the ball a handful of times a game. On a third down in the red zone, getting the ball outside, the guy can get to the pylon quicker than everybody else. So it's third and 5 from the 7. Get that ball to him outside. And you get a blocker or two in front of him. At minimum, you've moved the chains. I think you've got a pretty good chance of that being a touchdown, because he's just going to get out there faster than everybody else. And yeah, there are things, Jaleel, that you wish he did better. I mean, you wish he could bounce off guys better, and get more yardage down the field. But for that specific thing that you're asking him to do, he's perfect at that. Get you those quick 5-7 yards, move the chains, or get in the end zone there in the red zone. That's something he can do. There's value to that, and there may be value for him for special teams as well. So, yeah. Tyler Bidet. Yeah, he's doing well. Cecil and I have talked about this in Orange and Blue today with Tyler Bidet. Might be this year's Lil Jordan Humphrey in that you sneak him through the practice squad, because he's in his 4th year removed from his rookie class. So as a running back who's been exposed to the waiver wire at cut down day 3 times, so there's now been 3 running back classes since then, there's maybe a pretty good chance that you could waive him, bring him back on the practice squad, and then use 3 elevations on him, and then get him to the 53. And he could be your running back 3. Could Tyler Bidet. Don't be surprised if that sort of thing ends up happening if they play the roster gymnastic game. Now, it could be that they like Bidet so much they choose not to take the risk and they keep him on the 53 and maybe keep him instead of Estime. I'm not going to play the would I rather game. That's just, as someone who covers the team, I think it's probably not the best thing to say I'd rather have one than the other. I think that's not necessarily my job in being someone who covers the team to say, would I rather have one or the other? So I appreciate where you're coming from, Mark, on the question, but I'm probably going to steer clear of answering that one specifically, if you don't mind. But I would say that right now, Bidet is playing better than Estime, and Bidet is more complete. And we also can lean on the fact that when you got to the postseason in Buffalo and Bidet was healthy, And he hadn't played since that Jets game at the end of September, but they activated Bidet and they played him in Buffalo, and Estime was inactive. And I think that says a lot and seems like it's carried over. Based on the use that we've seen in training camp, Bidet is ahead of Estime. So, again, how the roster shakes out at cutdown day, they may play some roster gymnastic games, but I think effectively Bidet may be RB3 one way or another. Stay tuned. Bidet not making the team and you know it. No, I don't know that. I don't know that. Hey, sorry to disagree with you, that studio cat, but I don't know that and you don't know that. For the love of God, give a like, please. Mace is up. I'm not on YouTube, so I don't know if there's a like or not. I'm not keeping track of that. And I'll actually say this. I know I've said it before and again, but this is my test kitchen, this channel. The test kitchen for what I do over at Denver Sports. That's the real channel. This channel actually exists as a spillover from Denver Sports. Like, I would put my post-game stand-ups on here rather than Denver Sports because they didn't fit the algorithm over there. Because on the algorithm, you want, for what we do, we want things over there to be at least a short or at least 8 minutes. And my post-game stand-ups or my camp stand-ups are always, say, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Sometimes I did one that was 7 minutes, I think, on Friday. So they didn't fit. And respecting what we're doing on the algorithm, I put them over here because over on this account, I don't care. I'm just doing my own thing over here. But we put them over here and they get clicks, and every click we get helps. Every click we get counts, and it helps our reach. And so that's sort of how this started. And so now as I say, this is my test kitchen. Denver Football After Dark is my little test kitchen. So I appreciate you indulging me on this as I do this. My mom asked me, do I really have time for this? And I said, well, this actually involves no prep time for me. Like I'll actually show you something here. You saw the video clips. I have the Troutman video clip and I had the Bo Nix video clip, but even something like this, when I throw a little video of Pat Bryant up there, I've already clipped that for Orange and Blue Today. Evan Engram there. I clipped that for Orange and Blue Today. Nice little catch there during the individual period. Or, if I want to talk about Jeremy Crawshaw and use a little Ken Burns video effect there. Those are pattern repeats. Apparently the YouTube algorithm likes those. But with all those, and there's Bo Nix there. I've already clipped those. So it's not any more work for me to put this show together. It's just the time that I'm on here. But even then, what would I be doing with this time? I don't know. Maybe I'd be reading or something like that. But what this does is it allows me to put in reps. That's what I also say about this show. It's putting in reps. I need to learn to be a better broadcaster individually. I'm reasonably okay when somebody else is driving, like Cecil, or back when I was doing Orange and Blue 760. Some of y'all may have listened to me over there when Ryan Edwards and Steve Atwater with me. Ryan Edwards was what we call the driver of the show, just like Cecil is the driver of Orange and Blue Today, like he leads off. Or when I did the show over at Mile High Sports, Eric Goodman was the driver. Or on DNVR, usually like Ryan Koenigsberg, or Zach Stevens introduced it. They drove it, and I kind of chimed in. I need to get better at initiating and driving. It's not something I've done very well when I feel that I've done very well when I've had the chance. And so I need to put in reps and do this more often. And actually, you'll notice I didn't take comments for the first like 27 minutes. And I appreciate everyone commenting on YouTube as this thing was live, but that was intentional because one of the things I need to do is learn how to talk and keep things reasonably engaging without leaning too much on comments. I need to kind of talk and expound without just simply taking comments in, if that makes any sense. So that's why I say this is my test kitchen, and I appreciate all of you joining me and kind of indulging me and sort of helping me with this as I kind of test things out. As I go through this, especially after training camp, I'm going to probably try some different things. I was talking with my mom about this tonight, just some things I want to try, maybe some different questions I'm going to ask in locker room interviews and that kind of thing, and puts together some features here. So I'm actually pretty excited about things that I want to do. On here, but doing it late at night, and Victory says it's definitely different. No other channel going live late. Doing it late at night gives me the freedom to just kind of do whatever, right? I don't know how many of you ever saw the movie Private Parts, and I do appreciate the kind words and the support. I really appreciate that. There's one, I can't use it because I have to keep it clean. I see it in the comments. I have to keep this G or PG rated on here, but I do appreciate it. You know who you are, that Studio Cat. So I can't put it on there, but I do appreciate your sentiment there. But there's your clean comment. I put it up there for you, Studio Cat. So thank you. So anyway, but yeah, there'll be some different things we try on here. Some different stuff that I have in mind. So Eminem, like Bo Nix in this team, I appreciate the level of maturity, mellow vibe, and knowledge. Well, thank you. Mellow, that's it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was on a tangent and I got off. I'm going to go back on it. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Private Parts back in the 90s. It was a movie, Howard Stern playing himself. There's a scene in there where when he and his crew get to WNBC in New York City, and the program director, played by Paul Giamatti, who basically is great in everything he does. They get to New York, and that character, the program director, says like, "Hey, go on the air at 3 a.m. and do some characters," and the characters they do end up basically getting all these calls into the station of people complaining. I'm not quite going to do that. If you've seen the movie, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because it's definitely ridiculous and most definitely a little ribald, to say the least. WNBC. Oh gosh. If you know, you know. Anyway, oh goodness gracious. Some good questions. I've taken a few of them. I'm actually going to go back in here and see a little more. Why are we doing live if we aren't even interacting with chat? Why? Good question. I just wanted to kind of let it flow for a bit. Another thing also is it is an algorithm thing that if you are doing a show that has a topic right there in the subject line? What are we learning that you need to focus on that initially and have that be the center of it, and then kind of go in other directions. So think of it this way. The comment section, it can go in a lot of different directions. And I like taking your comments. I like the free flow nature of responding to what everybody is saying and seeing what direction the conversation goes and reacting to it. But at the same time, I also want to kind of say, okay, this is like the topic of the show. And this is what, when people come afterward and they're watching the archive version, they're seeing, what are we learning from the first 2 days of Broncos training camp? So for those people who are clicking on this later and they're seeing the title, you want to give them what they're clicking for when they come after the fact, which is that particular topic. For all of you who are here now watching live, once we kind of get past the meat of that topic, now we in the first, say, 10, 20 minutes or so, now we kind of get into the free flow of the conversation and start taking the comments and let it go in any direction we want. It's also, I think of it from a newspaper perspective as well, a news writing perspective. I mean, I took journalism courses, all that in college, blah, blah, blah. An inverted pyramid where you get, basically at the top, you get the big stuff at the top of the story, and then you kind of work your way down, the topic stuff there. And now we kind of work our way and do, whatever. We have some fun. Now we just kind of let it flow. All right. Vic, yeah. See, victory lap, you get it. Like that's the thing. See, on radio, and little inside baseball here, as it were, Cecil Lammey and I kind of talk about how shows flow. We have a lot of conversations about how shows should go, and like we'll listen to a radio show or listen to a podcast and we'll say, okay, I like this about it, I don't like that, and we'll kind of debate it amongst ourselves. A lot of radio shows sort of ease into it. That first segment is just kind of, hey, kind of whatever, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in podcasting and in YouTube broadcasting, that's not what moves the needle. And it's also not what is algorithm friendly. Really what works for those is start off by getting to the point and getting to what is in that topic line, that subject line. That is actually what is proven to get the greater response. And so it's the inverted pyramid. Get to the important stuff first, and then kind of work your way down to go in whatever direction. If it's a live show, particularly, whatever direction all of you watching live are taking it with the comments. So that's another thing to consider as well. Yeah. Eminem, it's your channel. Do what you want. We appreciate you. It's your channel. Yeah, it is my channel, but you are watching live. You are with me. You're along for the ride, but you're here and you're engaging. So I also appreciate that. And I like you being involved. And also the thing that y'all do as you comment here, as the show goes on, you get me thinking. And sometimes what you do is you get me thinking about a question maybe to ask at a future press conference, a topic to discuss maybe on a future show. It gets my mind going. So it's teamwork, as the cliche says. Teamwork makes the dream work. So, and you also, a great comment here. Bo's press conference, humble, genuine, great character. Sure, easy to root for him. And I'll add another word as well. And it's a loaded word based on what we've seen over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Authentic. He's very authentic. And that's something that guys in that locker room really appreciate. authentic. And when he came in last year, he didn't walk in and thump his chest and say, hey, I'm the man. It's my locker room. He was respectful of the veterans. He knew his place. He carried pads. He accepted his role as a rookie. He listened. A reason why veterans came to respect his leadership is because he was authentic, but also because he listened and he learned. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't. He just fit in. And he worked hard. He earned respect. He didn't ask for it. He earned it. And he earned it by being himself, playing well, and doing his job well. Just, I mean, they got it right. I mean, it looks like they got it right with this guy. I mean, we'll see. This year's going to tell a lot, but it really looks like they got it right with him. PS2, quiet confidence, lead by example. Authentic sums it up nicely. Yep. That's a good way of putting it. Authentic, authenticity. Bono's football. If you're of a certain age, you remember that commercial. Bono's baseball, Bono's football, Bono's basketball too. That actually brings back some memories because my late father and I, that was a commercial we'd quote to each other sometimes. Bono's football, Bono's basketball too. Always liked Bo Jackson. Man, just legendary, that guy. If J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, and Jaleel McLaughlin are earth, wind, and fire, who is earth, who is wind, and who is fire? Ooh, okay. All right. I'm going to say, okay. All right. Jaleel is wind, like fast, kind of breeze, right? Light. He's the lightest of the three. That's why I'm going to say he's the wind. Ooh. See, RJ, I'm tempted to say earth because of the quads, but I also think of like his explosiveness outside. When I think, okay, earth, steady, rock, kind of the rock of the room. JK is earth. Jaleel's wind. RJ's fire. That's what I think we got to go with. I think JK is earth. Jaleel is wind and RJ is fire. And I think RJ's also got some fire to his personality as well. And I mean that in a good way. So that's what I'm going with. But I like that. I like that one. But you're also talking to somebody who really loves himself some earth, wind, and fire. You know, I'm not going to try to sing because I can't do it justice. Just not even going to. I want to hum, but I'm not going to. Anyway, JK says win because he can be gone tomorrow. Oh, I shouldn't laugh. But I mean, he has missed more games than he's played. That's the roll of the dice. Of all the injury rolls of the dice that the Broncos have taken, and you think about it, there are significant veteran pickups, right? Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, J.K. Dobbins, Evan Engram, all have significant recent injury concerns. Evan Engram's probably got the least of them because before missing 8 games last year, Evan Engram had missed only 3 games in the previous 4 seasons. So Engram actually has the fewest recent injury issues of those. Everyone else has something really significant. DG. Mace at it late. Yep. Mace on the case, as some would say, and Mace at it late. Late indeed. By the way, these things keep getting longer. Oh, gosh. Live, definitely different with the edit. Do the live, make the edit, and rock with it. Okay, maybe I will. But then again, part of it is also, it's a sort of a time thing. Is like, I get it done, and then I sort of want to leave it as is and sort of move on. Because also, I get done with this, and then the one thing I do is I take the photo slide off of it that I create, which is this here, and I put it in YouTube and then go back and I go to bed. Well, actually, I'll do a little reading before bed. My current reading, I'm going back and reading some books I really liked from the past, doing some rereading. The current book I am reading right now or rereading is a book that my parents gave to me for Christmas of 1988. It is a coffee table book on the history of ACC basketball in the first 35 years in the history of the conference. And it's a delightful book. Brings back a lot of memories. I read that book cover to cover probably at least 3 times, and now I'm reading it again. So this kind of tells you I'm a sports nut. I'm not just a football nut, I'm a sports nut. So sing it. I'm not singing it, even though I want to. I'm not going to. I'm going to spare you that. I'm going to spare you my flat voice singing. I do it for you. I played basketball growing up despite my lack of height. I was a pretty decent basketball player as a kid. I'll tell you a little story. I guess we'll call an ACC travel quick. Ha! I'm glad you bring that one up. So I went to basketball camp a few years, University of Richmond and the University of North Carolina. And one year I was at North Carolina, and the youngest group of basketball campers was called the Little Tar Heels. And I was the shortest and I was the youngest. I literally had my 10th birthday during basketball camp week, and that was like the cutoff. And because of that, a couple of the coaches called me the littlest Tar Heel. So anyway, but littlest, but I held my own. One of the memories I have of that week, they do a free throw shooting thing at the end of the morning drills and all that. And if there were like 6 groups. We were all divided in like 6 groups, and then you'd have a contest within your own group, and then the winners of each group would have a contest among each other, and whoever won their group didn't have to run win sprints. And I won our group, and then among the 6 group winners, I won the contest among the 6, and on one of the days, and we didn't have to run wind sprints, and that was like a very proud moment for me that I hit like 8 free throws in a row, and under pressure. Like, yeah, that's everyone, all the other kids watching, and you hit like 8 free throws in a row, and that's like, it may not be like the Final Four, but when you've just turned 10 years old, that's actually a heck of a lot of pressure. So my go-to move. Just I was a draw charge guy, getting your face on defense. And when the 3-pointer came into play, it was my bread and butter. I wasn't much of a slasher. Just kick it out to me. And my shot to this day, whenever I shoot baskets, to this day, top of the key, just right at the top of the key, 3-pointer. That's a little bit beyond the top of the key, of course, because the 3-pointer has been moved back at the college level, but just a little bit beyond top of the key, 3-pointer. That is the shot I always hit when I shoot baskets, and that's I always have to hit that shot before I'm done. To this day, whenever I shoot baskets in any driveway, that's the shot I hit. And I actually, even a few days ago, up in Wisconsin there, when I was at a house that had a basket and I was just shooting a few baskets, and I still always had to hit that shot before I'm done. So ever play baseball? Not organized. I mean, I can play, but not organized. I played organized basketball, organized soccer. So yeah. So Kramer's coffee table book on coffee tables. Yes. And it turns into a coffee table. So can you give me an update on Kyrese White? How's he looking? Okay. First of all, Kyrese White, he is going by Kyrese Rowan, Rowan, and that is his last name. Broncos PR, I confirmed that with Tyler Gorse, Broncos PR official today. So and I noticed on the sticker on his helmet says Rowan as his surname. That is a surname he is going by now. Kyrese Rowan, Rowan. So same guy, Utah State wide receiver, signed by the Broncos in May. Had an absolutely gorgeous catch on Saturday. Left side of the end zone. Not a great throw by Sam Ehlinger. He's open. Gorgeous adjustment to the ball. Turns back, twists, makes the grab. Everyone goes crazy. He's made a nice catch every day he's been out there. Going back to rookie minicamp, he's impressed. When you look and you've got Rowan, Jerwan Newton, Joaquin Davis. It's a good group of undrafted receivers. Courtney Jackson as well as making some plays. They kind of nailed these undrafted receivers. All of them bring something to the table. Credit to the scouts. I mean, Jerwan Newton, low signing bonus as well, completely under the radar. But Jerwan Newton's making plays every day, and there was a play today Saturday he made across the middle lane. This dude is tough, fearless, small but mighty, as they say. So, all right, we're getting up to 90 minutes, and it's after 2 a.m. in the Mountain Time Zone, and I think it's time for me to go off to Bedfordshire, as was once said. But appreciate you hanging with me on this Saturday night into Sunday morning. Thanks for joining me here on Denver Football After Dark. That was a good question to end on, because I know how I like to talk about the undrafted guys. I'm here to talk about the roster 1 to 91. Of course, it's 91 because Jeremy Crawshaw currently counts as an undrafted player. Good night to you as well. Good night to everybody who joined me. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are, whether you're watching live or on delay. Pleasure to have you here along with me for Denver Football After Dark. Look forward to talking with you next time. We may have a Sunday show, because one thing that I have not gotten into is some of Damani Leach's comments. Broncos President Damani Leach talked about stadium stuff, but he also talked about uniforms on Saturday. And you know how I love talking about uniforms And maybe want to kind of get a look at some potential combos because we might be seeing the white helmets a lot more this year. So if you're a uniform nerd, maybe we'll do a little Sunday show, perhaps, if I'm up for it, and discuss a little of that. So if I do that, look for it. If not, there'll be a Denver Football After Dark on Monday. There'll be Orange and Blue Today also on Monday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And of course, I'll have my Monday camp wrap on Monday afternoon. Full pads for the Broncos on Monday as well. Yeah, I agree. The white helmet is fire as well. Appreciate you, Eminem, and I appreciate all of you for joining me here for this edition of Denver Football After Dark. Thanks for watching. Of course, appreciate all the comments. I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, share. And if you enjoy this or enjoy my wraps from Broncos training camp practice, there'll be more of those. I'll also probably be doing daily wraps from the locker room even during the season. So be sure and subscribe for what I think is going to be daily content here on the Mace Denver channel as well. And be sure and subscribe to Denver Sports YouTube channel because that's where you can get Orange and Blue Today as well and get the latest from Cecil Lammey and myself with our daily shows covering all things Broncos. And of course, join us at 5 p.m. Mountain Time every weekday for all the latest on your Denver Broncos. So until next time, take care. Thanks for watching and have a great night, everyone.